Welcome to the Mandatory Social Interaction Show. I am your host, Eric, along with my unruly co-host, Tim, and the mysterious Benjamin Burns.
Hi. I don't know if that conveys mystery at all.
It does to like an infant.
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay.
so how is everyone doing this week?
Conscious.
Oh, yeah. That sounds about right. I'm doing well. I had
survived.
caffeine at like 10 o'clock, which is something I never do.
Yep.
And
I know
Conscious.
that feeling. I know that feeling.
riding that wave until about 45 minutes from now. And then then I'll be done.
We'll have to wake him up over the Discord. Ben.
I'll be okay.
So
Yep.
cool.
Better wake up.
So everyone have a good week. I think it's been a couple weeks since we've all been together. Last week I think it was just me and Tim.
Yeah. Yeah. 2 weeks ago, it was all of us were together. And then last week, I had some stuff come up, which was well, it wasn't unexpected. It's just I forgot about it. And
No.
then
That happens.
3
So-
weeks. Thanks, pizza.
Cool. Well, that's all
Either
right.
way. Yep. It's been busy.
So I
That's
happen to know that over the last month or so, you both have done some stuff that I'm curious about, and that is you both have done tons of collaborations. So Tim, I know you did a ton of co-streaming with a bunch of different people for the E3, all the E3 stuff. So
Yep.
you did co-streaming, I think, for. Oh, I'll probably get it all wrong, but I think you did the PC one, and you did. Excuse me, I think you did the Ubisoft one.
No, I did EA. No, wait. I didn't do Ubisoft. No, I did PC Gamer, Bethesda,
Oh,
Wow.
Bethesda. That was the one I was thinking of.
and I did Sony, and then who else did I do? I did another one. I can't remember. I did 4.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Cool.
Yeah, it's
Did
a
I
lot
do-
of work.
Maybe I did 3, but it was still like 4 or 5 hours a piece. So it was a long time.
So yeah,
It was a
and-
lot of content over 2 days.
Yeah, I mean, each of those presentations was an hour to an hour and a half, plus,
Except for with the exception of Microsoft, which was more than 2 hours, I think.
yeah. So I
Oh.
mean, you're talking about, each.
Oh, I
of
did
those...
Microsoft. That's the 4th. There it
Yeah.
is.
So each of those was pretty huge, and then you were, some of them. I think it was the PC one. You were co-streaming with up to like 3 other people, so that's Tim. So let's press pause on Tim for a moment, and let's go to Ben. Ben last week had a special guest in town,
Yeah. He
Gardner
was-
from Garden Sound.
Yes, he was rolling through. He was doing kind of a road trip around the country. He stopped in Minneapolis to. One of the reasons why he stopped was Caroline, his wife, needed her bassoon fixed, and there was a place here that did that. So he was in town, and I talked to him, and we've been talking on and off for a while. We did a collaborative video 2 months ago or so, talking about our top 5 video game songs, which was a lot of fun, and it was super cool to meet him in person. We actually hung out Monday night, had some dinner, chatted, and then on Wednesday he came over to the studio. We recorded a creative exploration, which should be up in a week or 2, depending on when I have time.
Exciting.
And I also did a 2-hour track challenge with him, which was a lot of fun. It was the first live collaborative 2-hour track challenge in the series, and hopefully I can do more in the future. I would love to do more. It's just like you can't really do it online. There's just no easy way of.
Yeah, not if
the
you're
back
going to do it.
and forth.
Not if you're going to do it the way you guys did, which
Yeah.
where you essentially for those who did not see the stream, if anyone in the chat hasn't seen it, basically they worked on. Ben would work for 20 minutes in Ableton and do some stuff, and with Gardner kind of sitting to the side and making suggestions, and then they would swap. So
Yep.
about every 20 minutes they would swap off, and then whoever was in the driver's seat kind of got to do the things that they felt needed to be done, and then they kind of went back and forth. And it came out. It was a really cool track, actually.
Yeah, it is. We're gonna probably work on expanding it, and we have some ideas for a multimedia thing that we want to do, but I can't talk about that too much right now because we don't really know if it's gonna happen, and I don't like hyping people up.
And of course, one of the one of the most obvious things we can all talk about right now is we're all collaborating right now. We do this this show as a collaboration. So
Yep.
we get people from Ben's kind of universe. We get people from hey Jank. We get people from Tim's universe. Speaking of Jank, we get
Wow.
my universe is not particularly big.
A lot of shade there.
Wow, that was not shade. I know where Jank comes
were
from.
You were, well, yeah. I guess if you want to talk about Jank as a person rather than Jank as an idea, because you were talking about Tim, like Tim's content, and you're like, speaking of Jank, let's talk about Tim.
No, Jank Hambrams, he's in the chat.
No, I saw that.
Jeez.
I thought you were being more clever than you were. I'm sorry.
I'm not that clever. Exactly, Hambrams. That's the problem. I don't call him Hambrams. I always call him Jank. Everyone else calls him Hambrams. So anyway, and my point is, I kind of wanted to talk about, since you guys have done a decent amount of it, and Tim, you do more than just what we talked about. You do like a lot of co-streaming and stuff. And Ben, you've done other collaborations with other people as well. How important is it to collaborate as an independent, online media presence? What are the benefits? What are the pitfalls? How does it work? Has it ever backfired on you?
Yeah, well, networking is a huge part of content creation, and meeting with new people who are in the same sphere as you, whether they be larger, smaller, is really important. And a collaborative creation, like a collaborative stream of sorts, is a great way to get a cross-pollination between your networks, so people that enjoy you also may enjoy that person, and vice versa. And it's not one of those things, because I've actually heard people say, well, then they're just stealing my audience, and there's no such thing. I mean, there's enough people have bandwidth to watch more than one person, so it's really important to have that kind of cross-pollination and collaboration.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I think people take for granted is the power of just spending a single stream playing games with somebody and just having a good time. Like, for example, last night I was co-streaming with my friend Zay, and she just recently started streaming again.
Yay.
And we just had fun, and that's really it's good for me as a content creator, because sometimes being the sole presence on a stream can actually get a little lonely in a way. It's really nice to have somebody to play games with that is a fellow content creator and in the same kind of sphere as you, and dealing with some of the same struggles and things like that, and you can just have fun with them, and it's relationship building in its purest.
Yeah, and I would echo a lot of that. I mean, aside from the idea of just like making something with somebody else, it's I hate to say that it's like a marketing aspect, but it is. It helps broaden your audience, because people, like the people you collaborate with, are people that you, like their content you adore, and people who like that person. Like, it's just meshing all of these different people together and all their audiences, because like there's a lot of people who said, well, I found you through Jeremy. I like Jeremy's stuff, and I like Red Means Recording. Or like earlier today, somebody was saying, I think it was Mintrovert, who said, like, I was watching Andrew Wong, which brought me to Simon the Magpie, which brought me to you. And it's just like all of these collaborations just bring people together. And I think that it's really great to do that. From a more mechanical side, when you're actually making something, that's a little bit more hit and miss. Like the first 20 minutes of the stream with Gardner was a little awkward because we didn't really know where we were going. But about a half hour in or so, I feel that we just kind of clicked. And then all of a sudden we were on the same wavelength, that we were talking about, okay, yeah, that guitar stuff's really cool. We should put this in here. And then we were starting to arrange things and put things together. So it's like sometimes that stuff doesn't work. But collaborating is a great way of expanding your own knowledge and watching other people work, and just like it's like one of the best ways to learn, I feel.
And you mentioned what wins the time it's backfired, and I mean it can. You have to be pretty choosy with who you decide to collaborate with. So I wouldn't encourage anyone to just collaborate with everybody that they run into on the street. I made that mistake when I was first starting off, really, and I think I had come over to Mixer. No, it was when I was on Twitch, and there were, in terms of my content, I mean, it hasn't, in terms of my rules and stuff, it hasn't changed. You know, don't be a dick. No homophobia, transphobia, yada yada yada. You know, the general rules that you want to follow to keep a civil community of people who like each other. You know, so well, I decided to do a stream with a smaller streamer than me, and they had asked if they could stream with me, and they did. And the language they used was
Oh God.
I'm not just talking like F-bombs and stuff, because I mean, I drop those all the time. We're talking slurs. And I was like,
Oh,
okay, we're
geez.
done here. Goodbye.
Yeah,
We're
that's not okay.
finished.
Yeah,
that's
doing like the proper research on the person, and I feel like any collaboration you do should be with somebody that you actually appreciate, whether that's bigger or smaller than you. It doesn't really matter, but
Yeah.
like you
That was
have
a
to be
hard-learned
aware
lesson.
of their content. Yeah.
It was a very hard learned lesson.
Yeah, that's not, you know, and that's unfortunate. Unfortunately, sometimes you never really know. Yeah, sometimes you never know like what's going to happen. I mean, it is a little bit of a roll of the dice, but you know, I think that's good advice. Is try to get a sense of who you're going to collaborate with before you do it, and make sure that
Yeah.
their stuff aligns with what you want to do.
Oh, jeez.
You know.
Yeah, most definitely.
So let's see. You know, what how did you find the people you collaborated with? You know, like Ben, I know you and Garden Sound. I'm guessing mutual fans on YouTube, and
Yeah, I found Garden Sound through Red Means Recording, the Discord channel. Recommended him, and I was like, oh yeah, this guy's pretty cool. He I think he had recently finished the 365 challenge, so he wrote a song every day for a year, which is monumental, and I have no idea how he did it.
Yeah, that's monstrous.
yeah.
So yeah, he not only wrote a song, but he did a vlog post every day about that song. So that was a huge undertaking for him, and I think I found him at the tail end of that when he was just kind of doing educational stuff. And yeah, I mean that's how I found Gardner. A lot of the other stuff in the music community is primarily through Discord, really. People just like offering stuff in the cool links sections, and just people just like, hey, this guy's pretty cool, you should check it out. And I do, and I'm like, oh yeah, this guy's pretty cool, I should get in touch with him. And it's usually how it goes.
And-
A big chunk of the way I find folks to co-stream with usually just comes from me exploring my platform, exploring Mixer, and
Yep.
watching other people's streams when I get time. So on my lunch breaks, or if I have some time at work, I'll pop into a stream for a little bit, and I'll say, hey, this person's cool, and I'll start talking with them and getting to know them, and kind of see what they're about. And if it's something that's interesting to me, then I'll jump on it. I'm lucky enough that I got in at a very early time when Mixer was still Beam, that the community of Mixer, every streamer over a certain size knew every other streamer. I mean, like almost every streamer knew every streamer, because there was no Xbox streaming at the time. So anybody who streamed on there had a PC and a setup to play. So I mean, everybody knew everybody. It was like Cheers, everybody knew your name. And so it really paid off in its own way, because a lot of streamers on Mixer have heard of my content, and I've heard of a lot of other streamers that have been around for a while on Mixer. We might not have ever really engaged or collabed, but overall, like, I would say I'm on pretty good terms with a lot of the larger streamers. In terms of, I know of them and they know of me.
Right.
So that's an advantage in its own. It's otherwise it's just popping into people's streams, saying hello, and becoming part of their community to an extent, and getting to know the streamer before you jump on saying, hey, let's stream together, because they might not know who you are. So
Yeah.
it goes both ways.
And then Ben, you also do your creative exploration series, which is not. Is it exclusively collaboration? Is it exclusively you're doing interviews with people that you?
Oh, no, the
um,
creative exploration
or
primarily.
is that also the videos where you talk about where it's just you talking about creativity and stuff?
Yeah, primarily it started as just me talking about creativity, but I realized that this is just my viewpoint on creativity, and everybody has their own viewpoint. So I expanded it out to work with other people's viewpoints as well. So I have interviews, but they're really more active conversations where I have a series of questions that I ask just to get a conversation going, and if it goes off on tangents, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
Like, I think the one with Shaka Panda, we got halfway through the questions and it was like an hour and a half in, and I was like, dude, we have to call this. I have other stuff that I have to do today. But yeah, like sometimes it's a short discussion, sometimes it's a longer one, and it's always very, very interesting. But primarily those were kind of just talking head videos, just me talking about a particular idea that I had at the moment. But lately they've kind of evolved from that a little bit. I still want to do the solo talking ones, but I feel a little burnt out on those right now.
You put a lot of work into those.
Yeah.
That was-
Even though the talking ones are a lot easier to make, they're also just like, I don't want to do them right now. So I'm not.
I can understand that.
And so, one thing I was also curious about is,
Yeah.
how much, and not just for you, Ben,
Yeah.
how much does collaboration help your, I don't want to say help the numbers because that's not what's important, but like, how much have you, what do you get out of it? And I don't mean that in a, in a purely like, what do you get out of it? But I mean like, how helpful is it for your brand, for your streams, for your, audience engagement, all that stuff? How does that, does it help? Does it bring in more people? Does it create a bump and then it goes away? And then you have to like keep doing it to try to, like what's the, what can people expect if they're doing, collabs or co-streams with other people?
Well, it depends on the person, really, and it depends on their audience. Like, I was really lucky to have gotten in touch with Jeremy from Red Means Recorded because he has a huge audience. He's like at like 200,000 YouTube followers now, subscribers, which is awesome. And we haven't really done any direct collaborations, but he gave me a shout out, and that was a big bump on my channel. But that was just a bump. That wasn't like a steady stream. It was just like people watched the video and were like, hey, cool, let's go over there and check it out, which, is awesome. And I really, really appreciate him for that. Stuff with Garden Sound, like that one collaboration video we did, that's a little bit more of a slower burn because it's one of those things where we're going back and forth and we're doing ideas. And I really like that. I think that it's a lot of fun. So it really depends on the type of content that's being made, as well as like the type of person that you're collaborating with. It's kind of a non-answer, and I'm sorry, but
No, that's okay. I mean, that's
I mean, I agree. It's for me, it's really dependent on what I'm aiming to get out of it at the time. I mean, to be honest, in my experience, on at least from the streaming perspective, co-streams actually hurt your numbers because people have to load 2 streams, which means that if they have weaker internet, they can't view one or both, and things like that. It can cause a lot of issues. It's also not technically perfect yet. Like, Mixer has a long way of perfecting the technology, and it's one of those deals that mainly my aim for that is spend time with the person and get to know the content creator, because ultimately knowing a streamer, knowing a fellow content creator, especially if they're at a similar size to you, makes a big difference. And I don't say this from a purely like, this is what my advantage is, I get this out of it standpoint, but think about it this way. If 10 streamers who are all similar size to you, maybe a little bigger, a little smaller, they take off, then that's a good thing for you because you still have a connection with them and you can still co-stream with them, and it may be beneficial later. in that
Sure.
regard, at least in terms of that shout out or that, those numbers or whatever. And I'm not saying use it solely to gain numbers, because from my perspective, I do it because it's fun.
Yeah.
I want to be able to play games with these people, because I sit there and I watch their streams all the time, and it's like, I would love to play games with this person. and,
Yeah.
and I know that a lot of viewers of streams are the same way, because when I play Call of Duty World War II on my stream, people are like, I want to play with you, you're famous. And I'm like, no, I'm not, but you can play if you want. Like, and it's that, and I understand the mentality, because when I see somebody like Zay, even though Zay is like one of my best friends, like we talk all the freaking time, we text each other and stuff, but it's like, for me, it's whenever I get to play with Zay, it's like I'm playing with somebody who's a celebrity. So it's pretty cool. It's just one of those things that just kind of reminds you that you're not an island, which
Yeah.
is nice. It kind of keeps your ego in check a little bit too,
Yeah.
if you happen to have one, which I don't like to think I do, but either way, it's important to make sure that you keep yourself grounded. And streaming with someone else and having them riff on you and say that you're terrible at things makes you go, yeah, and just have fun with it and just roll with it. It's fun. It's
Yeah.
always a good laugh. So
Yeah, I completely agree with that. It's just it's good to not like think about it from like a tactical point of view. You're not just like, oh well, if I do this and this, then I'll get famous. But
Yeah.
it's also good to just keep in mind that everybody's a person, and you just gotta find the people that you like to hang out with.
absolutely.
Because like the same thing with Garden Sound. It's like he's a celebrity to me, even though he's bigger than I am when it comes to numbers, but not by a ton. But it's still one of those things where it's just like, it was really cool to meet him. It was really cool to get to know him and just like hang out and spend an afternoon just chilling out with him. I made him. He does chef stuff. So he made me lunch, and I was like, oh, I can make lunch. He's like, no, dude, I got it. It's cool. I like doing this stuff anyway. I was like, oh, okay. I guess Garden Sound will make me lunch.
Well, if nothing else,
Well-
you're taller than he is.
and
Yeah,
it's
apparently.
it's it's an interesting thing, because when I go to PAX West, I'll be staying with Zay and my boomstick, and my boomstick is Zay's husband, and they for those who don't know, my boomstick is a big
Yeah, he's a big-
numbers streamer.
big
He's
deal.
huge. He's hundreds, over 100,000 followers,
Wow.
and doing extremely well, which kudos to him, because he's awesome, and I feel he deserves every minute of it. But that said, like I'm good friends with Boom, but it's like, it's one of those things where I feel like I'm gonna be starstruck for like 20 minutes, because I know him, and it's like we're buddies, but it's like, it's just that moment of, dude, you're one of the big like 10 people on the platform. Like, that's huge. And I don't know. It's gonna be interesting, because I've co-streamed with him before, and it was a while back. But like now, I don't even know if it would work out, because our audiences are very different. Because he generally stays on the teen rating, and I stay on the 18 plus, and he's very particular about language and the things that he says on his stream, and I'm not. So it's also a matter of trying to match audiences, because if you are someone of 200,000, 300,000 followers on Twitch, and you stream with somebody who has like 1,000 followers, unless you really like know that person, that can be very transformative, either in the way people perceive you, or in the way that people pick up that person. So
Well, and also, I would imagine, like, it's pretty hard to, if you're like not a Fortnite streamer and you co-stream with a Fortnite streamer, I would imagine that's not actually good for your, ends up not really good for your community at the end of the day, because even so, let's say you play Fortnite for 4 hours with the other streamer, which is cool, but then you start, then you get 30 more followers, or subscribe, not subscribers necessarily, but yeah, followers, right? You get followers from that, and then the next time you stream and you're streaming Dead Cells, they're like, this isn't Fortnite, and they all just drop.
Yes.
So
you gotta
Yeah.
if you're with if you're a variety streamer and you co-stream with a variety streamer, usually that'll mesh, and that's kind of what I was
Yeah.
talking about. Finding somebody who's in a similar space as you. Like Fortnite streamers will usually stream with Fortnite streamers, and that makes sense because
Lame.
that's their audience.
Yeah, I know.
That's their
Well,
audience.
no,
but
I mean, I get it. Like
I
that
know.
absolutely makes sense. Like I mean, it kind of sucks in a way. Like I mean, you're right, Ben. It is kind of lame, right? Because like it becomes the Fortnite or PUBG or whatever, Overwatch, right? Like Echo Chamber, where it's it becomes high school cliques, right? The Fortnite group, the
Yeah.
Overwatch group, the PUBG group.
But ultimately, it's kind of the way I look at it is less of. I mean, Fortnite, like anything in a certain genre that play a specific genre of game as their game of choice. Like if you play Fortnite, you play PUBG, you're in a very similar space because to me it's kind of like it's less of a click thing. And I mean there is clicks, so don't get me wrong, but in terms of how the streamers, how those genres work, is it's more like almost different industries within or almost different fields within an industry. Like in IT, you've got developers and you've got administrators and you've got QA people, and it's kind of like that. It's just they don't cross-pollinate very much because they're very different from each other. A BR streamer, a battle royale streamer, is way different than a pure variety streamer, which is way different than a Counter-Strike player. So it differs very much, and it's kind of siloed off in a lot of ways based on how you craft your content, which is really interesting to me.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've been branching out a little bit more. I've been co-streaming with my wife lately, which has been a ton of fun. But it's not like we get a lot of views. It probably in the long run, it's probably hurting my Twitch channel to be playing Guild Wars 3 times a week. But like, honestly, I don't care. Like, I would rather just play games with my wife, and if people want to show up and hang out with us, that's cool.
Yep.
Because if people might be coming to my channel for music, and I celebrate that, but I want people to be coming to my channel for me, because I don't know if I'm going to be doing music. I don't know if I'll do the 2-hour track challenge forever. Like,
yeah,
right.
I eventually things are going to change, and people don't like change, and I get that, but I want to make sure that whatever audience is with me is here for me in general, like the general me, not necessarily to like adore me, but just because they think I'm entertaining. So it's like it's important for me to do that. And if I lose followers, that sucks, but I would rather have people follow me who actually care about like me and the stuff that I do, rather than just be like, oh, this is just music all the time.
And that is the exact reason that I'm a variety streamer. Is solely because I don't want to become known as the COD guy or the Fortnite guy or whatever. I would much rather have a community built around not just me, but around my content, around the other people in that community. And being a variety streamer really sets no expectations for what I will be playing, because I literally play everything from anime boob physics games to to shooters to rhythm games. I mean, you name it and I'll play it. And that was the exact thinking that I had, Ben, when I first started doing this. Is I don't want to become stuck in a rut where if X thing gets old for me, or becomes loses all of its prestige and people just aren't engaging with it, like because someday Fortnite will die.
What?
Yeah, I know. How dare I?
You mean League of Legends isn't still around?
That's how. Well, League of Legends is, but it's not number one, right?
Yeah.
So it's lost a lot of its luster. And
that's my point, Tim.
Oh, thank you. Sorry. Thank you for proving my point.
God?
But
was that God? Was that you?
But ultimately,
that was the Shure SM7B microphone.
That should be their tagline. God, is that you? No, it's the Shure SM7B.
One thing I wanted to mention that you guys are kind of touching on is, and this goes for like the Fortnite streamers and the PUBG streamers, everybody really, is your stream. A lot of these things, especially streaming, and even when you're streaming niche content like music production and stuff like that.
Shit that nobody cares about.
No, it's not true. That's not true. We have a whole chat room full of people who just
I
came
know.
from your stream.
I
You
know.
you apologize, Benjamin.
No,
No,
I
I won't apologize
for-
to my audience.
Yeah,
But
not my
anyway,
fault.
yeah. But my point is,
Yeah.
for those things, a lot of it is creator, personality based because
Yeah.
even the Fortnite streamers and the Fortnite audience, right, which is huge right now. We're not trying to pick on them; they're just really big.
No.
And like Fortnite, people who like to watch Fortnite like really want to see more Fortnite. But the thing is, the streamers, they watch the streamers that they resonate with because it's not about Fortnite anymore, right? Because
It's never about the games that
it's
people
never
play.
about the game. It's never about what you're doing. It's never about the thing, right? It's never about the fact that you're playing Call of Duty or you're in Ableton Live. It's the fact that like people connect with you and people like
Yep.
your thing. You know,
Yep,
people
it's the
like
personality.
yeah, like people tune in to Ben's stream because, you know, it's a chill, nice like stream to watch and like see someone create something. People tune into Tim's stream because he's fun. He's fun to watch. He's, you know, engaging. He talks to everyone in the chat, and he keeps his chat pretty clean.
Yeah.
In terms of like, you know, like people who are being disruptive tend to not stick around long. You know, which if that's something you really appreciate, then it's like, yeah, this is a great place to hang out because like the cool people kind of rise to the top and the people you don't really want hanging around tend to not hang around.
Except for the streamer. Nobody wants that guy to hang around. But he's
Yeah, that's the only problem with Tim's stream is Tim. If we could just
You're
get rid
not
of
wrong.
Tim, it would be great. No,
You're
Tim
not
is
wrong.
no, Tim is a blast to
Wrong at
watch. He's also a blast to make fun of when he's bad at games, and that's okay.
Which is always.
Yeah, well, the funny thing is, and I've said this before, is one of the reasons I like watching you is because you're bad at games.
It makes you feel better about yourself.
Yeah, it literally because I know I'm just as bad as Tim. Like,
Oh, yeah.
it has nothing to do. It's not like I look at Tim and go like, "Oh, I'm so much better at that than he is." It's like I look at Tim and go, "Oh, I'm not the only one." Like, oh my god, someone else is bad too. Because sometimes you watch streamers and they're amazing, and you're like, "Oh my god, this is really? I'm supposed to be that good? I'm supposed to be able to do that?"
There's watching good people is like watching a professional athlete play a sport, right?
Yeah,
You're like,
exactly.
"Wow, holy crap. And you watch me and you're like, wow, holy crap.
Yeah, it's like Access Television basketball or something like.
Exactly. It's yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly,
man.
Jank. That you know what? That is your new tagline, Tim. Gaming for the common man. Insert
Yeah, I
coin
like it.
theater.
No, I don't want that.
That's so good. It's so good. So and this kind of actually segues into the next thing I wanted to talk about, and that's a tweet that you tweeted a while ago, Tim.
while ago,
And
yeah.
it was like, I don't know, a month ago, 2 months ago. You tweeted out, you know, that you wonder if you will succeed in your dream to stream full time, and I think it was Ben that put in, you know, on a follow up tweet something about slow growth and sustainability.
Mm-hmm.
I
I said something inspirational. I can't remember what.
Also Adderall and cocaine, something like that.
What? No, that's my personal success. I don't give those out for free.
Well, the first one's
Oh,
free, but then after
Yeah. I was gonna say because when I visited you, Ben,
that.
I
No.
mean, no, you would never give me Adderall and cocaine. I don't know what you're talking about.
So, you know, talking about, I mean, so we kind of talked about collaboration, but also, you know, like the slow growth sustainability stuff is, you know, talking about streaming and talking about, you know, like, and I'm going to start this off with this podcast here. Because one of the reasons I continue to do this podcast is that I have structured it in such a way that I don't have to do much work.
Yay.
You know, and I'm not kidding. And I'm not kidding around. Like, I've done other podcasts before. This is not my first rodeo, and I've done enough of them where I've had to, you know, I've done a lot of them where we all, you know, the people involved in the podcast thought we were going to edit this thing. We're going to like edit it. and get it down. We're going to record for 2 hours and then we'll edit it down to 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's great for the first one. And it sucks for every single one after that.
Yes.
Because now you've set yourself up for a 4-hour editing session every week.
Yep. Been there.
And even, no matter how much you like editing, I mean, editing is cool. There's nothing like it's, I'm not taking away from that. No matter how much you like it, though, you've just set yourself up for another job. And all of these things, no matter what you're doing, if you're streaming or making music on a regular basis, you've set yourself up in some ways for another job. And going into it knowing that, like the podcast here, for instance, when I set this up, I was like, hey, this has to be live. I want to record it live. I'm going to edit it so that it starts at the beginning and ends at the end, and chop off the head and the tail, right? And then that becomes the thing. And that's all I wanted to be able to do. I wasn't gonna say that I'm editing this thing. I'm not gonna, I'm not doing anything other than really basic, simple editing, and then putting that puppy up there. And that, for me, was my sustainability, whatever you want to call it, goal or requirement to do this show. Because I don't mind doing the work, and I like doing the work, and I love doing the podcast. But I also know that the more work I make it, the less I'm going to want to do it, and the more likely it is that I fall out of it, and I'm like, guys, I just can't do it anymore, which I don't want to do. And this is super. Yeah. And right now, the way this is, it's super sustainable. I could do this forever. And that's awesome. But talking about slow growth and sustainability, as a streamer, you stream. Geez, Tim, you're probably online more than the rest of us all week, because you stream like 4 hours Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then Sunday as well.
And usually it's more than 4 hours on Sundays. Usually I do 6 or more, depending on what's going on
Monday,
Sunday.
Wednesday, Friday, that's 12 hours. Plus, if you do, let's say 6, that's 18 hours a week.
Yeah.
How is that balanced? How do you make that sustainable?
It's not easy. It's mainly my wife. Like normally, it's very hard to balance a family life, working 40 to 60 hours a week, streaming, 18 to 20 hours a week, a podcast, 2 podcasts now, 2. God, there's 2 podcasts now. So it's a matter of doing everything you can to find the balance. And I know that doesn't really answer the question. It's just sometimes you have to, when somebody says, hey, do you want to go grab a pizza? You go, well, I've got a stream to do and I can't really miss another one this week because I already skipped out on Monday or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just really important to be dedicated and be patient with it, because it's the biggest challenge of finding a balance is that you have to have supportive friends and family that understand what you're trying to do is your goal and your dream.
Yep.
And it's one of those things that you hear stories of people who start out as musicians in high school or whatever, and they join a band, and then they work their ass off for it, and they just work and work and work, and they don't really get a job outside of that. They don't go and work a 40-hour a week job. Maybe they work part-time somewhere and to help make ends meet, but ultimately they can focus full-time on their dreams, and that luxury isn't really there for me. And I know it's not there for Ben either. So, no. But ultimately it's a matter of finding the balance between keeping up with your content, not burning out, and keeping your family and friends satisfied enough that they don't feel like you've completely abandoned them forever. If that answers the question.
Finding a schedule and finding a rhythm that works for you is probably the most important, because it's not just about, I stream primarily once a week, and that's fine by me, and I've been able to grow a fan base from it. It's not necessarily how much you stream, it's how consistent you stream. And I think that goes not just for streaming, but for most creative stuff.
Yeah.
where it's consistency and being able to sit down at a certain time and understand that this is my work time. That's the most important part. That's how you get things done, is if you create a schedule, and it's not just like, well, I've got 30 minutes before the next thing, I bet I can bang something out right now. And then it's just inconsistent. And you and I've talked about this before, I think, but like creativity is a lot like a muscle. It has to be worked out. And it's something that if you have a dedicated time to do that, it's a lot easier. Because like going to the gym sucks when you go there initially, but when you leave the gym, you're like, oh yeah, that was pretty good. So like it's being dedicated to that, and having that dedication. And yeah, sometimes that might require sacrifice for other parts in your life, but that doesn't mean that your entire life needs to revolve around creativity, because it shouldn't really, because
Yes.
you'll go crazy. You'll go crazy, and then you'll be one of the artists who are crazy. And
Yes, there's a
maybe
very good
not
reason that
famous.
the crazy artist stereotype exists, because it's not a stereotype. It
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah.
If that's all you focus on, you become obsessed by it, and it becomes your identity, and then
Yeah.
you lose yourself in it.
Yeah, and I mean, and maybe that's what makes you famous, but that also makes you crazy, and nobody wants that. So it's finding that balance, and it's I don't know, that moderation, like everything in moderation, including moderation, is exactly the right way to do this, because sometimes you have to just sit down and burn the midnight oil and finish something, but other times you just need to meter out your work. You can't just do everything at once. And I mean, that's the same problem that I have with my damn to-do lists, where like I have probably a week's worth of work on here, and I wrote it down thinking I'll do it in a weekend, and that's not a sustainable way to manage your life.
That's a bad idea.
Yeah.
Well,
And that's-
and part of
yeah.
that though is giving yourself permission to not get to everything on the list.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Having like writing it down on a list is a good thing. Giving yourself,
No, I know.
but no. But I mean, for everybody else who maybe doesn't know, like you have to give yourself that permission and that leeway to say, here's the 15 things I want to get to, and you write that list, and you write it with the knowledge that I'm not going to get to all 15 of these, and what you need to do is set your goal lower. So let's say, here's 15 things, but here, if I get to 5 of these, I'll be happy, or 10, or whatever that is for you, right? It's not, no one can tell you, only you can really make that choice. But if you write it down with the assumption that you're going to get to all 15, you're going to constantly be after yourself, that you're not doing enough, you're not good enough, you're not doing what you wanted to do, or how far you wanted to get. And it's super important to kind of give yourself that permission to do less. And that doesn't mean don't do anything on your list, but it does mean that like if you don't get to all 15 things, like that's okay. There's another day, there's another weekend.
Well, let me draw a parallel with the way that a lot of the full-time streamers that I see on Mixer doing it, and they stream 6, 7, 8 plus times a week, like between 4 and 10 hours a day.
Oh,
And
Lord.
yeah, and I mean it's
Sounds exhausting.
it
does.
is, and it leads to burnout, and it's part of the reason that so many live streamers burn out as quickly as they do. I mean, I've even seen some of the really big streamers, I think it was Lyric, who's huge, was like, I need to take a week off because I'm dying, and I know if I take a week off, I'm going to lose a ton of my subscribers. And it's really important to take care of yourself as a creator. Like if you don't take care of yourself, the content loses its appeal and people go away anyways. So is it better to run yourself into the ground and get sick and harm yourself to maybe drive your audience away because you're exhausted and not feeling great all the time? Or is it worth it to kind of scale it back and let people come at their leisure?
Well, and that's where that sustainability thing comes in, right? Because if you think that your 6 hours a day, 10 hours a day, 6 days a week is if that's your schedule and people get used to that schedule, and then you take time away and you start losing subscribers, yeah, I get it. Like, it's like, oh, I can't leave. right? Setting
Right.
that sustainability up where it's like, I don't do it 6 days a week. I don't do it more than 8 hours, 6 hours, 4 hours a day, whatever's comfortable for you. Because then you've built breaks in, right? Like for you, Tim, I know on your schedule, Saturdays are yours.
Mhm.
Other than the podcast, which I know we kind of shoehorn in, and we appreciate that you take some time away, but Saturdays are like your day, right? That's
Yeah.
like the day you don't have to stream, you don't have to work. It's a day for you to recover. And you've built that into your, to your schedule, which makes total sense. And the people who do that, 6 days a week, 10 hours a day,
Yeah.
I mean, anything, even if it was work,
Yeah.
even if it was a job, if you did it 6 days a week, 10 hours a day, you'd burn out. You'd burn out at that job, no matter what
Absolutely.
it was, no matter what
No,
that
absolutely.
job was.
Yeah, well, I know that my I've already got it all planned out for when I do go full time, because that's the goal, right? Is it for myself personally? It's going to be 2 4-hour streams every day that I'm doing streams now, plus one extra day.
Yeah.
So I'll still only do 40 hours a week.
Mhm.
So it's what I'm
Yeah.
used to at work, and then I'll be reclaiming 20 hours a week
Yeah, exactly.
to actually spend time with my family and my friends. So that'll be something in its own right.
Yeah, and sustainability is huge and something that people don't think of. And this is something every time somebody starts a Patreon and like I was planning it, I'm like, make sure that whatever you do, you're happy doing and that you want to do consistently forever. Because some people want to be like, oh, I want to do this, and this, and then it's just like, well, are you going to be able to do that every week or every month for basically nothing? Because when your Patreon starts out, it's usually pretty small.
Yeah.
And if you want to do that, make sure that you either are already doing it and understand the commitment, or you're going to be happy doing that. Because if you commit yourself to 20 hours a week doing stuff for Patreon and you're making $10 a month from the people that's started out with you, you're going to get burned out. You're going to get really, really discouraged. And maybe continuing doing that will make your Patreon grow larger and everything. But you have to get past that first initial wall that you set up, and it's difficult. And sustainability, you have to make
Absolutely.
sure that whatever you want to do is low impact, because you're going to be doing it a lot.
Well, and then one of the things, to move this forward a little bit, one of the things about sustainability, and what the other thing we were going to talk about, is slow growth. And if it's slow growth, and you don't expect to have a big bang, 100,000 subscribers overnight, with that slow growth, you have to be sustainable, right? Because if
absolutely.
you're going to do slow and steady wins the race, if it's not sustainable, you'll just quit.
Right.
Yeah, there was actually a video that I watched on YouTube a while ago, but it had Andrew Wong and Adam Neely and a couple other large musicians in the YouTube community, and they were talking about how they started their YouTube channel 10 years ago or 12 years ago. It's not something that just popped up overnight. It's something that they worked at for a decade before it became popular. So it's never, and there's always that snowball effect where once you start getting more popular, more people flock to that, and places like YouTube will help promote it for you.
Right.
But you have to get to that point where things start rolling forward, and it's hard and it's discouraging. Yeah, or become an IRL streamer. Yeah.
And
that's
that's
everybody.
And so there's an interesting discussion going on over here in the chat that Melanade is saying, if you can do it for 2 or 3 months, then you can probably do it forever. And Pizza asked, is 3 months enough? And Melanade is like, good question. I don't even know. Anything can go wrong. And that's the thing. There isn't a point where for sure that you can do something forever. Essentially what you try to do is, it's all about the self-care, right? If you build self-care into your process, which is kind of what we're talking about, right? Of sustainability, and not burning yourself out. If you build that in, you're going to have, you're increasing your odds of success, You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's not necessarily, and I mean personal success, right? You know, I'm not saying, you know, self-care is the key to 100,000 subscribers, but you won't get to 100,000 subscribers if you burn out the moment you have 1,000.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, so, you know, one of the things is it's building that, you know, that kind of like self-care stuff into your process from the beginning. You know, it's making sure that, like, you know, like I said with the podcast, right? Making sure that the podcast process isn't going to burn me out, so that we can keep doing it, because I love to do it and I want to keep doing it.
Right.
You know, so making sure, and part of, and like, you know, because this is a collaboration, part of my thought was I want this podcast to be such that Ben and Tim only have to show up. All they have to do
Yeah.
is, all they got to do is show up and talk for an hour, and then that's the extent of the work that they do.
And then I get
and-
my paycheck.
I'm rich.
Yeah. So about that, guys, we're experiencing some profitability issues, and I'm afraid we're gonna have to lay you guys off.
Oh no!
No, but in all seriousness, you know, that was important to me, because I know, like, Ben and Tim, like, talking about sustainability, I understand the effect of the podcast on their sustainability. Like, if it's
Yeah.
not sustainable for Ben or Tim, you know, if Tim can't make 90% of the podcasts because it burns him out too much to add it to his schedule, then it doesn't help anybody. You
Right.
know, and I'm just picking on you, Tim. It could have been Ben, but it was you.
I'm used to it. It's okay.
You know, so one thing, talking about the slow growth, I'm curious about this, and I know, Ben, you were having some struggles with this earlier, maybe the last couple weeks, a month. Tim, I don't know how much you struggle with this, but I think everybody does.
Yeah, it's been
Talking
bad
about,
lately for me.
well, talking about slow growth, and specifically measuring growth and looking at the numbers. And the numbers are almost always a source of stress. So either you're like me and you don't look at the numbers. You know, the number that I look at is how many people are in the chat every week, and I'm like, oh, hey, this is cool. We got like 11 people. That's great. You know, that to me is like, that's my measure of success. You know, looking at, I don't even look at my YouTube subscriber numbers. And I also know that I have this VCV rack tutorial that is like the only thing driving my subscriber numbers, and it's like a year old. So I know that my subscriber numbers are like kind of goofy anyway, so I don't even worry about them. But for you guys, you have Twitch subscribers, you have Mixer subscribers, you have YouTube follows, you have
Patreon
Patreons,
supporters,
you
Twitter
have,
followers. Yeah.
you know, all kinds of stuff. So how important are the numbers, and how, you know, and what do you do when the numbers get you down?
Okay, so this is something that I talked about on Monday with Gardner and you as well, Eric. So lately, I have been. I talked earlier about Red Beans recording and Jeremy giving me that shout out, and that meant a ton to me. But it did that huge boost in numbers, and then, you know, having a follow up with that later, I got another boost in numbers, and it's like, oh, I saw all these spikes, and then I got like obsessed with looking at the numbers, like, oh, how many times did it go up today, and all this other stuff. And it's just like, now that it's plateaued down, it's just like you get that initial hit, and you're just like, oh yeah, it's great, and then it's kind of like a drug in some ways, and it's just like you get addicted to watching those spikes, and it's not going to happen all the time unless you start acting like an asshole on YouTube, apparently.
No, it's the same way on Twitch and Mixer too.
Yeah,
Don't worry about it.
Yeah. So the point that I had was that I got really, really hooked on looking and seeing like, oh no, it went up another 50 today, and oh, that's great. And now it's petered down to where it normally is, which is, you know, a handful of people subscribe every day, which is great, and I can't complain about that. But I got really depressed looking at that and being like, oh, the stuff I'm putting out isn't getting the same engagement as I did, you know, when I got those huge shout outs. And it's like, of course it's not. But that engagement is what I was looking for. And it got me really depressed, and it made me give me like self-doubt. It's like, oh, well, what what if I never had it? What if I lost whatever mojo I had when it came to creating content? And it's like it put me into this kind of spiral of depression. And I dealt with that for a solid month and a half over the last month and a half, I guess. I'm finally starting to get out of it a little bit, which is good. Hanging out with Gardner was a real big help for that. And, you know, talking to you and Eric about it, or Eric and you and Eric, sorry, words, I'm tired. Either way,
the coffee's wearing off. Wake up, Ben.
I know. Right? I wasn't lying. So it's just like, being able to talk to people and understand that everybody has this problem is a real big help for that. The other thing that really helped me was I just stepped away from the computer. I tried to turn off all of the metrics on YouTube that tells me how many followers I have, because honestly, just like streaming, I don't care how many followers I have. As long as people are still engaging with the content, that's all I care about.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I am too. I had a period where when Beam became Mixer, I got partnered right before that, and they started doing all this stuff like the Xbox dashboard stuff and things like that. So I had a lot of really unique opportunities, and I took advantage of those, of course, who wouldn't? And my numbers skyrocketed. I went from like maybe 1,000 followers, or 1,000 followers on Mixer to like 12,000 in the matter of like 3-4 months. So in terms of growth, like my trajectory was like this crazy bell curve of it. I couldn't even understand it. Yeah. But the way that I got to a point where it dipped hard. Yeah. And that's kind of where I'm at now, where it's steady. It's not fast, it's steady. It's like maybe 10-15 followers a stream. And but in terms of my viewership has been at an all-time consistent high. Yeah. And so aside from the slow follow numbers, my viewer count has been higher than it's ever been in terms of consistent viewership. And whenever I look into my who's watching or who's in chat thing, it's all subs, which is crazy good in its own right, because it's a rarity. Because often when you go to bigger streamers, you'll see like, you know, maybe 10-15 people with the little sub icon in the subscribers group, and then everyone else is like a pro user or just a regular user. And then you look at mine, and it's like 90% of my viewership is all subs, and then like that last 10% is just regular users, and that's amazing. And it's I'm so fortunate for that. But I did get really down on numbers for a long time because of that dip in growth, and you know, not getting 2,000 followers in, you know, 2 weeks was a little painful for a while. And it's gotten to a point where I've gotten over that, because like I said, so many are subscribers in my chat that like I'm happy, because I have a community that loves hanging out and just being there and spending time with each other and with me and just hanging out. So I've kind of changed my own metric for what I view as successful. So yeah, numbers are important, but when I'm sitting at 35 viewers, I'm like, well, they're all subs, and that's awesome. Yeah. I'm okay with that. Like, that is beautiful. That's a great thing. And even if no new people come through, as long as my subscribers go, that was a great stream, I had a ton of fun, thank you so much, I'm satisfied. That's my metric for success, is that people enjoy themselves and my community can still thrive and grow, even if that 1 or 2, you know, 10 new followers, if 2 of them engage and go, wow, this community is really cool, and stick around, that's more valuable than, you know, 1,000 followers that never return. So
pretty much. Don't look at the numbers, they lie.
Yes. numbers can fool you very easily.
All they do is make you feel awful, and they don't really. And like, you should still look at your metrics, you should still look at your overall trajectory, but if you're obsessing over your numbers every day, if you're looking at them and being like, oh, why didn't it go up as much as it did yesterday, I must be awful. I mean, that's
harmful. It's so harmful to yourself.
It's very self-destructive.
Well,
yes, and you just can't do it. You can't. It's that sustainability. You can't do that and sustain yourself, because you get discouraged, and when you're discouraged, you give up. And you can't sit there and look at numbers and a lot of people judge their own content worth and their self-worth against those numbers, and it's like those numbers have nothing to do with that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Those numbers are just who happens to come by your stream.
And that's what I was going to say, and I think we're going to close out with this. You are not your follower count. You are
Yes.
not your subscriber count. You are not your
Yes.
viewer count. You're your own unique, beautiful person, and nobody can take that away from you. And you're just because the number went up or down doesn't mean you're worth any less than you were yesterday, or that you're worth any more than you would be tomorrow. So.
Eh. No, that's absolutely right.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks a lot. The one time I say something nice.
No, that's absolutely right.
100%.
So, all right, man. I think we are gonna we're gonna kill it on that bombshell. So this has been the Mandatory Social Interaction Show, and we have reached our social interaction quota for the week. I know I'm gonna stop talking directly after the stream.
Hey, guess what? We haven't talked about Star Wars, and I watched The Last Jedi a couple days ago.
Yeah, I know.
See you later, guys.
That's 100% why we stopped. So, besides Ben, you got to come back. You got to come back. Where can people find you on the interwebs?
Find me on Twitch, Twitter, Patreon, and YouTube at Ben_Burt.
Tim,
Well, that was quick.
where can we find you?
I'm ready. Twitter.com/InsertCoinTim. Find me on Mixer at Mixer.com/InsertCoinTheater. That's theater spelled like the American spelling. And then check us out on Discord, Discord.tv/IZT. Eric, where can they find you? Buddy?
And they can find me at, well, try that again, on Twitter at ZaxaCMK, Twitch.tv/ZaxaCMK, YouTube.com/EricKleinCreate. We ran too long for the outro. That's okay. The show is available on Stitcher, Google Play, iTunes, and wherever fine podcasts are sold. Our website is MandatorySocial.com. Our theme song is Proto-Funk by Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com. Background music is by Ben Burns. You can find him at AbstractionMusic.com. Thank you, everyone in the chat. You all are beautiful. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next week.
See y'all later.
Bye.